Hello, welcoming you all to our new podcast series, Next Level Humans. And I am honored to have a brilliant, genius guest over here, Avi Loeb. Hi, Avi, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure, Nevsah.
Yeah, thanks for being here and thanks for the time. I know you're very busy and I'm all amazed by your work and what you've been doing for humankind in general. And I am certain that your name will be remembered many years, hundreds of years maybe, with all the work you've been doing. And I will let you introduce yourself. You're an amazing human being. So, like I said, I'm honored to have you in this podcast. I'll let you introduce yourself and your work.
Thank you so much. Well, basically, I was born on a farm, very much connected to nature, and that's why I don't have any footprint on social media. I don't care how many likes I have, and as of the last few years, I was I'm a tenured professor at Harvard University. I was chair of the astronomy department for a decade, still the director of the Institute for Theory and Computation, former director of the Black Hole Initiative. But all of these titles do not mean much to me because I'm fundamentally a curious farm boy and just wondering about the world and trying to understand it. But what I'm doing in recent years is a mission that I have to uh, promote a better future for humanity. And it resonates very much with the theme of your podcast, because I believe that we can do better. If you read the news every day, most of our resources are dedicated to conflicts, zero-sum games about territories and resources that we have in limited amounts here on Earth. And if you think about it, that's a very narrow-minded point of view, which we inherited from many years in the jungle as part of nature. But once we develop the science and technology, we can do better because science offers an infinite sum game, not a zero-sum game. If we gain knowledge, it benefits everyone. And if you think, in fact, this morning I wrote an essay just talking about how important it is for us to venture into space, because there will be a catastrophe that eventually will wipe out everything we cherish here on Earth. As much as we will take care of our environment, which we don't do as of now, even if we give up on all the conflicts but stay on Earth, eventually the sun will boil off all the oceans on Earth because it will get brighter and the Earth will become a desert, just like Mars. And within 7.6 billion years from now, so just mark your calendar, the Earth would be engulfed by the sun. So it will basically spiral into the core of the sun, and everything we cherish, all our dreams, aspirations, all of human history. We had 117 billion people that lived on Earth since a few million years ago. All of whatever they dreamt, whatever they did, all of human history will be burned in the core of the sun. And so if you want to leave something behind and you ask, what will be remembered in cosmic history from us, it's actually only the things that we send out of the Earth into interstellar space. These are the monuments that we will leave behind. And there must have been a lot of tragedies over cosmic history of civilizations that didn't rise to the occasion. They were fighting with each other on the rock that they were born on. And that by itself had no significance whatsoever, but that was deleted, erased from memory because they didn't leave any monuments beyond the planet that they were born on. And, if you ask yourself, suppose we send those probes to interstellar space and they have no opportunity to report back to us. I mean, clearly we need to give them artificial intelligence so that they are autonomous. The way I think of it is just like sending my daughters, our kids, out of home You just give them the tools to cope with whatever reality they face, and you don't helicopter parent them. You don't ask
Yeah.
them to report back on anything that happens. You just hope that they would represent you in the best possible way. And that is the approach taken by, nature. If you think about the dandelion flower, it spreads the seeds in the wind. It has no communication with the seeds that are spreading with the wind. And they land, the hope is that they land in some fertile ground and maintain the genetic information about the dandelion so that this flower will, when it dies, there will be continuation for this genetic information in the form of other flowers just like it. And that's the ambition that we should have as a civilization, that we would be represented billions of years from now. And that means sending out AI managed probes that will represent us, perhaps create what we want on other planets. And this should be a long-term dream. Now, I'm not under the illusion that humans would reach this conclusion and stop fighting here on Earth. But I think that there is a good chance we will do that if we find a package in our mailbox from another civilization that did that already, because then it's just like finding a smarter student in your class. You are tempted to imitate that student.
Where do you think is the consciousness, like human consciousness, and is there a maybe unified consciousness? Because some theories suggest that a unified field of consciousness could link all intelligent beings. So beyond everything, the technology, AI, do you think there is also a way to maybe connect with everything and anything with the consciousness itself? And can human consciousness act as a detector for extraterrestrial signals or presence in ways that conventional technology might not? What do you think of that?
Well, my view is consciousness is definitely the driver for us to be ambitious and have plans for the future that makes the future better than the past, because consciousness basically represents our realization of what we are doing, what the reality around us is. It's the feedback loop that keeps us wishing to do better. Okay, and so consciousness is very important. If it didn't exist, we would just operate like atoms that move around in some random fashion. They are not really defining their path. Or even low intelligence organisms, like, for example, the fruit fly. The fruit fly has a brain that has a very limited, thousands of neurons, and the map of neurons and synapses was mapped. We have a full map of the fruit fly brain, and we can simulate it on the computer. We fully understand
very
it.
simple.
Very simple. And so it's hard to say that there is any consciousness there, because it's just like an automatic machine that you can map and then simulate on the computer. But once you get to a very large number of neurons, like the human brain, where you have hundreds of trillions of synapses in the human brain connections, it's really difficult to...
Which can't be downloaded into a computer.
Well, it cannot, but artificial intelligence systems like the large language models, ChatGPT, are approaching this number of connections. They're also built as neural networks, but they're made of silicon, very different than the human brain. My point is that there is a threshold. Once you reach a level of complexity that is similar to the human brain or the ChatGPT now, then it's really difficult to forecast how the system will behave, and you get into the situation where the system is, in a way, rich enough to show consciousness and perhaps even free will. Now, what is free will? Free will is the ability of the system to operate in ways that cannot be forecasted, cannot be predicted. And that is because it's so complex that complex systems, even in physics, have chaotic behavior, have unpredictable consequences. When you go from 2 bodies to 3 bodies, already you have some chaos in Newtonian dynamics. But here we're talking about hundreds of trillions of connections. Moreover, the environment is not predictable. So you combine the unpredictable environment that is not fully defined with a human brain that is extremely complex. You end up with concepts that I regard as, sort of more architectural, more sort of abstract, of consciousness and free will. But basically, these are flags or signatures of a complex system that we cannot really forecast because it's so complex, and basically, it's not operating in a way that is predictable. And I think that AI systems will reach that level once there are more than hundreds of trillions of connections. We will have to be careful, because if you pull
they will have
out
their own will.
Yeah, they might have. And then if you pull out the power from those systems, then it's not different from pulling the trigger on a human. In a way, we will have to revise our rules of ethics, and also the legal system will have to adapt. Who do you blame for misconduct by very complex AI systems? Obviously, the people who produce them and train them early on, but once they become autonomous and they mingle within society and are affected by a lot of things beyond the training, it's just like having a kid. You first blame the parents if the kid destroys a shop, at a young age. But once the kid becomes independent and is an adult, then you have to punish or restrain the kid, the person that became the adult. And so the same would apply to AI systems. We would have to revise our legal system in terms of the restraints that we put on it, because there will definitely be damage from any intelligent system that is incorporated into society.
Yes, that is being talked about here in London as well, and here in England as well. Many people are now very much conscious about that. I believe we're moving into a very interesting era in human history. In history.
By the way, there are a number of people that are worried about this future, and they said that we need to put a moratorium on development of AI. But I think these people who are objecting to further developments must be very bad parents. Because when you have children, you know that they are intelligent and independent, and you cannot control them. You cannot be a helicopter parent, and you need to give them the freedom. But what you're trying to do through early age is to educate them on the guiding principle that you want to be represented by their actions as adults. And so the same will be true with any intelligent system. We have to educate it, train it, not expose it to bad things that happen in the internet, and then hope for the best. And if it doesn't perform according to our expectations, basically restrain it, either take it out of commission or modify it or train it again, which is what we are doing with our prison system for humans. And, there is no way to control intelligent systems, and you shouldn't lose your balance when you think that, it's beyond our control, because many things are beyond our control.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to know your ideas, because our main topic is next level humans. Your ideas on different levels of consciousness people are experiencing, and different levels of humans in the world right now. I usually tell my students, if you can't govern your life, someone else will be governing your life. And in the world, we see that, for example, the last research report from the global company Gallup was that only 10% of the world population are leaders, which means only 10% right now of the world population have the ability to govern themselves, their actions, and lead, which I call the next level humans, which we want to increase the number, obviously, like C-level individuals who gain the ability to govern their decisions and actions and behaviors and choices. And that's the only things we can control, actually, like our actions, decisions, maybe some thoughts. And the number is 10%. So the aim is increasing that number.
Well, I should emphasize the fact that it's not evenly split between our genders, that in some societies, women are not as privileged as men. And that, so definitely the one rule that should first be established is that in any society, there shouldn't be a distinction based on ethnic origin, gender, or anything else. All
Yeah,
humans should be held equal under the law. And
yeah,
but
yeah,
beyond that, of course, it would be nice if everyone would have the privilege of
yeah,
controlling their
being,
life. Yeah.
yeah, controlling their life. And it's kind of like, as you know, it's a level of consciousness. We need the prefrontal brain to be able to govern our thoughts, our actions. If we are in instinctive and impulsive behavior, which is led by amygdala and hippocampus and the lower parts of the brain, it is not easy to control our actions and behaviors. And how I see it is, as a human behavior expert, people who are able to govern themselves, their decisions and actions, are able to govern technology as well. But the ones who can't govern themselves, who are in instinctive behavior, who we call mainly consumers, which can be maybe which can be a kind of like a description for the masses right now in the world, are right now being governed, and maybe with AI and with technology will be governed more. So I would like to learn your opinion about, like, you know, the how the world works, and also humans, and where technology is and where consciousness is. Maybe kind of like a general point of view on how can we help humans get to the next level of their humanity, which is gaining the ability to govern themselves by using technology, by being hand in hand with technology and AI and science.
Right.
Because many people are also in the world right now interested in meditation, you know, ancient traditions, ancient wisdom, breath work, this and that. It is important for us to talk about how we align science and esotericism so that we can help humans reach to the next level of humanity.
Right. So I think the problem, the root of the problem is the human ego. When people are primarily seeking possessions and territories for nations, that leads them to conflicts because there is a limited amount of resources available. And um, if instead we would redefine our goals as to be associated with self-fulfillment, and everyone recognizes the privileges of others to coexist, in peace and work together. That will resolve a lot of our problems. Now, why are people, well, first of all, ego plays an important role because, we feel very proud of ourselves personally. And I think that's misguided because as far as my body is concerned, I received it from my parents. Just like receiving a car from a dealer. I was not responsible for making this car, for any of the qualities that my body has. If I'm a good runner, I had nothing to do with it. I have never seen my liver. I don't know how my heart looks like. I never had any role in designing my brain. All I can do is use whatever nature gave me for the better of everyone around me. And therefore, first of all, I should not be proud of what I have. Okay, so that's point number one, that our ego is misguided. And obviously, we all die. And that should be a reminder that it's not in our control. And therefore, we should give up on the ego. I think that's really the starting point. And then the second point is most of us live for less than a century as of now. And it's completely ridiculous for us to shorten our lifespan by engaging in conflicts. It makes no sense to go to wars where you kill other people or they attempt to kill you, because we all live for a short time. So why kill each other? Let's all live together as much as we can. I think it's a sign of not being intelligent.
Yes,
Just fighting,
yes.
especially now when there is the potential for abundance. We are not at the age where we had a limited number of bananas on a tree and whoever gets them would survive. That's not the situation right now. We have technology that allows us to feed everyone in principle.
Yeah,
And
I'm gonna just state one thing, because I think that's like that's like like how I see it is, it's very important to emphasize. It's like when you look at war, it is like some old guys because some old guys have conflict, young boys are going to war and killing each other. And
Right,
that's like, and when you look at war, it's not even like the choice of humanity. It
right.
is kind of like a choice taken by some old people, and
Yeah,
then
but
the others, because they have governance, then young people are killed. So it's like, that's like, for me, it's very important to look at that and like find ways to help people govern themselves
right,
so that
right.
they are not governed. It's like,
Yeah,
you know,
obviously there is something in the human brain that allows those old people to control. And if they were to tell the young people to take a gun and shoot themselves, that would not have happened. But instead, they send them to the battlefield where they get killed because they're given the narrative that they're protecting the nation. So somehow, this thinking within a herd, within a group, is primal. It's the way we developed out of animals. Animals work in herds because it strengthens them. And in order for you to be part of a herd, you need to have an enemy so that you feel it gives you a sense of belonging to your own group. That has to be abandoned. The sense that there is always an enemy that you should hate. And by the way, the social media operate just on this narrative. Very often people come together just to hate someone else, and that someone else they don't even have communication with, face-to-face communication. So it's very easy to hate people when you don't meet them. Just as an example, my grandfather was in Germany in 1935 when the Nazis started ruling, and in his village there was a gathering of the Nazi party, and a young person stood up and said, the Jews are using up our society. And my grandfather, who was Jewish, stood up and said, how dare you say that? I fought for the Germans in the First World War for 2 years. I was in the mud in a war against the French, and you dodged the draft. And so the young person said, yes, we all know about you, Mr. Loeb. I'm talking about the other Jews. And what this illustrates is that when you don't know someone, it's easy to hate that someone.
yes,
All the people that you know are not, could not be a target of hate. And so that's what social media is doing. It
yeah,
targets people that you've never met in person because you are on a digital screen. And that is very dangerous because
yes,
humans can do terrible things like the Nazis did just
yes,
out of a story that is given to them. And I'm sure the Russian soldiers are given one story, the Ukrainian soldiers are given another story, and you end up with people getting killed. And that is terrible. And it's the issue of storytelling and not really meeting your the counterpart in person. Because if the two sides of the conflict would meet with each other, they would realize they have much more in common
yes,
than
yeah,
they imagine. And so my point is, it's not intelligent for
no,
the for humans to engage in these conflicts now that we have enough to feed everyone, to give everyone what they want. If we were to invest the $2.4 trillion that we put into military budgets worldwide, if we were to invest it in developing science and technology, we would not need to work probably because we would have AI and robots, and robots are already building constructions, instead of people lifting bricks and so forth. We would develop technology to the level that we would not need to work 5 days a week, maybe 2, 3 days a week. And then everyone would have everything they need. We could share and enjoy life instead of killing each other, which makes no sense whatsoever. So
yeah,
cooperation is a sign of intelligence. That's my argument. And in
hmm,
addition to cooperation, following science is a sign of
yes,
intelligence because science is supposed to inform us about the reality that we all share. And the knowledge that we gain, the new knowledge, scientific knowledge, would be for the benefit of everyone. If we learn how to cure disease, everyone would benefit. If we learn how to get clean energy from nuclear fusion, everyone will benefit. So science is all about benefiting everyone. And the only source of evil in world politics is first the ego of the leaders, and of course people who follow them, and secondly, the investments of resources in conflicts for limited territories, limited resources. And I think once we decide to change our behavior, the future could be just like a messianic age where peace and prosperity could prevail. That's what the famous song, Imagine All the People Living in Peace. That was the original hope of John Lennon. And, it may sound as if this hope was an illusion, but I believe that if we find a package in our mailbox that tells us that someone else managed to accomplish that, the fittest survived in interstellar space, perhaps it will change our perspective. So that's the minimum I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that song, because that's my favorite song, which I've been using in my retreats for over 20 years.
Well,
as a message,
we
we're on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, that shows that that we are, that we came to the realization of the truth independently.
Yes. Yeah, and what amazed me in your work is your interest in and your career in astrophysics, and because I think astrophysics and astronomy and everything about the universe is kind of like a gateway for us, for our spiritual growth, and for us to reach to cosmic consciousness as well. Because it's like if you said like ego, and people are misled with their ego. People think, I fully agree, people think they are more important than they are. But if you look at a bit, even a bit in like to the universe, like, like you said, human life maybe lasts around, I don't know, 80, 90 years, 100 years max. And then when you look at the universe, when you look at the solar system, when you look at the galaxies and the Milky Way and everything, and then come back to Earth and to that human which has 80, 90 years of life, it is kind of like this dust.
Yes.
And I fully agree. It's just a piece of dust. And I think for us to reach to cosmic consciousness, what you've been doing, all the research and your career, the career you built in astrophysics is like, it is so meaningful. That's why I would like to talk about that a little bit and ask you the question, what inspired you to pursue a career in astrophysics?
So what you pointed out is exactly why religions were so successful in human history, because they connected our fragile existence for a short time with something bigger than us. In the sense of the religion, it's God. But what I'm doing is connecting it to the universe, which we will get to that, could also provide a sense of the superhuman entity. The point is that, even the human species came to exist only a few million years ago, which is 1 part in 10,000 of the age of the universe. And we know that we are not at the center of the universe since the days of Copernicus and Galileo. So imagine coming to a play, this case is the cosmic play, and you are not at the center of stage, and you arrive just at the end of the play. Clearly, the conclusion is that the play is not about you. But we keep thinking that it's about us. First, we thought that we are the center of stage for 1,000 years, starting with Aristotle. And then we realized, no, we are not at the center of the solar system. Okay, but we are still so important and powerful, and there is nobody as intelligent as we are. And now, it was amplified by the statement from Friedrich Nietzsche in 1882 that God is dead. And, in the modern era of science and technology, we feel as if we are at the top of the food chain. But now with AI, it may become clear to us that we are not the most intelligent things that are possible, because AI will become more intelligent than we are in some sense. And also, if we find aliens that are smarter than us, it will give us the same message. And to me, the advantage of getting that message is that it will bring us back to humility. We are just a small piece of the big picture. And the more we learn, I mean, it's very easy to be arrogant if you are just looking at your immediate environment. Then you can be in full control and you can claim that you are the king or the queen. But once you realize the bigger picture, you cannot claim to be in charge. And that will bring a very much needed sense of humility. At the
We're
same
just
time,
a part of a big
a
divine
bigger
order.
thing, yeah, exactly. And that's what religions traditionally gave us, a sense of, we are part of a bigger thing controlled by God. But here it could be that, there is a superhuman intelligence or entity on another planet near another star. And, we would be at awe when we figure what they are able to do, because, in the Old Testament, in the biblical story about Moses, he witnessed a bush that was burning and was never consumed. And today you can buy online gadgets that would have impressed Moses as much, and he would have believed that God exists based on those. And my point is that a very advanced scientific civilization could do miracles that we are unable to understand. And it's a good approximation to God. And if, in particular, if they understand how quantum mechanics and gravity are unified, they might be able to create a baby universe in the laboratory. And that would be one of the most important elements of the job description of God. If you look at traditional texts, it's the ability to create a universe. So if you're able to do that in the laboratory, you can apply for the job of God. And so if we find evidence for such an advanced civilization, it will bring religion and science together, because this civilization would be in reality. You would see what they are able to do, and they may exist near another star. And so let's search for them if they exist. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention in context of what you said is I live not very far from where Henry Thoreau used to live. He was a naturalist about 2 centuries ago, and went to the Walden Pond, which is not far from where I live. And he wrote the book Walden, where he preached for going back to nature. That was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And the way I see my view is very similar to his, except it's extended beyond the earth. I'm a naturalist. I really am curious about what nature gives us from other places. There is much more real estate beyond Earth than we find here on Earth, and we should open our mind to what is out there, look up and see what the universe brings to our doorstep. And that's why I'm studying interstellar objects that originated from outside the solar system.
Yeah, and you have also written a book called Extraterrestrial.
Right.
I would love to speak about that. Like, what message or insight do you hope readers to take away from your book?
Yeah, so until the last 7 years, I was primarily focused on the study of stars, the first stars in the universe, the scientific version of the story of Genesis. When was the first light produced after the Big Bang? And I also worked on black holes and so forth. But then in October 2017, the first object from outside the solar system was reported by astronomers in Hawaii. It was given the name Oumuamua, which means a scout in the Hawaiian language. And it was roughly the size of a football field, 100 meters or so. It was tumbling every 8 hours, and the amount of sunlight that it was reflecting changed by a factor of 10 as it was tumbling. And that meant that it had a very extreme shape. And it was also pushed away from the sun by some mysterious force without showing any evaporation, no dust or gas around it, no cometary tail. And the question was, what is pushing it, what its origin is? And I suggested it's just the sunlight reflected from it that is pushing it, because actually the most likely shape that this object had based on the reflection of sunlight was that of a pancake, a flat object. And indeed, a few years later, there was another object discovered that was pushed by reflecting sunlight. That ended up being a rocket booster that we launched in 1966, NASA launched, and it just had thin walls, and it was discovered by the same telescope in Hawaii. So that led me to suggest that maybe, it's artificial in origin, this object
Yeah,
of
and there has
Oumuamua
been a lot
was
of debates around that,
yeah,
right?
there was a lot of arguments. We didn't have enough information. The good news is that next year there will be an even better telescope surveying the sky. It's the Rubin Observatory in Chile. It will have a camera of 3.2 billion pixels, 1,000 times more than the number of pixels in your cell phone. And it will survey the entire sky, southern sky every 4 days. And it's
Mm.
likely to find an object like Oumuamua every few months. So my
Wow.
hope is to study those in great detail. But in addition to Oumuamua, I discovered with my student an object that was roughly 0.5 meter in size, the size of a big watermelon, that collided with Earth at a very high speed. It created a fireball, an explosion of a few percent of the Hiroshima atomic bomb energy, when it collided with Earth, and it was moving at a speed that is even larger than 95% of the stars near the sun. And so I was wondering whether this object could be a Voyager-like meteor and some space trash that was
Mm.
produced by another civilization, like the Voyager spacecraft that we produce, which was wandering through space and then collided with Earth at a high speed. It also was of high material strength. It only disintegrated in the lower atmosphere where the density of air is very high. And so I led an expedition to the Pacific Ocean to collect materials from this explosion, and we found a chemical composition of some of the material that didn't match anything known until now
Yes.
from the solar system. And so we are planning another expedition. It will be more expensive. We want to look for bigger pieces from the crash site of this object. And altogether, I'm really eager to know whether among all the rocks that are passing through the solar system, there might be technological debris.
Yeah.
Elon Musk launched a car, the Tesla Roadster car, in 2018 as part of the Falcon Heavy test launch. It was a dummy payload on that rocket. And within 20 million years, it may collide with Earth. And the engine of that car might actually reach the ground, and it will appear as a meteor of a type that we've never seen before. So we should be open-minded to the possibility that there might be many more space entrepreneurs that are far more accomplished than Elon Musk that
Yeah.
existed since the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago.
Yeah, and I actually remember all the news about all of these researches and your findings and discoveries. So it is impacting into the world, and I am certain that it is going to change a lot in society. I would like to learn how you think, how do you think all of these findings will be impacting society?
Yeah, I
About
think
understanding the future, about understanding the universe, about understanding astrophysics and what's out there. How do you
yeah.
think it's going to impact the
Yeah.
masses, the bigger society? Because there are a lot of news about it and debates and yeah.
So when I was in the Pacific Ocean on the ship, I wrote a diary and posted it on medium.com. And there were millions of people around the world that read it every day that I posted a report, and they were translated to Spanish. And I got
Yeah,
a
yeah, I
lot of
remember that. I clearly remember that.
and there was one email that particularly touched me, moved me, because it came from Denmark, from a person who wrote to me and said that he just had a stroke, and reading my diary reports at the hospital gave him strength and reason to live. He
Mm,
enjoyed seeing how science is done by collecting evidence, not having an opinion and knowing the answer in advance. And I think a lot of young people come to me still now and say that they are inspired to pursue science. This is the most important thing for me, that to maintain the curiosity of children, because children are curious, but when they become adults, they start pretending that they know the answer without having the evidence. And it's just in order not to show any weakness. And that's especially clear in politics. Politicians would never admit that they are ignorant. And however, a kid would do that. And so my biggest threat to my integrity is behaving like the adult in the room and pretending to know more than we know. I really am maintaining my childhood curiosity, a beginner's mind, and I think that's very healthy. And in order to practice that, you really need to give up on the ego. And it's not about you, it's about the learning process where nature is the teacher. It educates us, and we just need to listen and not have an opinion to start with. And a lot of them, the slow progress of science is caused by experts who are claiming they know the answer in advance, and therefore innovation is suppressed. And I see that even in my context, there was a lot of pushback from people who knew the answer in advance, who said that the US government data is wrong because it doesn't match what they expected. And there could be nothing more arrogant than saying the data is wrong because my model doesn't fit it. Why would your model be correct? I mean, why wouldn't you just consider the possibility that the data is correct, especially when the US Space Command issued a letter to NASA after checking the data that this meteor was interstellar. And some people published, even after the letter was issued, published a paper in the Astrophysical Journal saying the US government data must be wrong. They measured the velocity to be 2 times bigger than it actually was, because otherwise we cannot feed the data with a model for stones from the solar system. And stones, if you just look at the history of stones, before 1803, it wasn't conceivable that stones can fall from the sky. People ridiculed the idea until a meteor shower was noticed by a lot of citizens in the French city of Liège. And then people realized, yeah, stones can fall from the sky, which sounds counterintuitive. And then, in 1910, Alfred Wegener suggested that Africa was connected to the Americas, to Antarctica, to Asia, to Europe in a supercontinent, because if you look, it looks like a jigsaw puzzle. All these continents match in their boundaries. And he was ridiculed, and he died in 1930 with his model being completely dismissed by the authorities, by the experts. And then in the 1950s, it was realized that the vegetation in those different continents matches on the boundaries, and that the rocks, the type of rocks, match. And he became the father of the view that led to plate tectonics, that indeed all of these different continents were part of a supercontinent to start, 200, more than 200 million years ago. So you could walk from Europe to the Americas, to Antarctica, to Asia, to Africa, just walk across land, which sounds counterintuitive. And, we're talking only about the last few percent of the age of the history of Earth. So I'm just giving examples of situations where the experts know the answer in advance. They're not seeking evidence. And it's really, you might say, well, it doesn't matter. Eventually we learn that we are not at the center of the universe. Eventually we learned all these things. But it takes a long time to learn those things when people are ridiculing. And, Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher, said that the truth comes in 3 stages. At first, it's ridiculed. Then the experts say that it's wrong, and they can show why it's wrong. And eventually, they say that it's self-evident once the evidence is clear. And there is actually another stage where they say that they thought about it first at the end. And you see that again and again in science. I find it to be unfortunate because it suppresses innovation. The young people that look at the situation are afraid. They are afraid to innovate in the academic atmosphere that exists right now. I have no issue because I established myself, I have tenure. That's exactly the purpose of tenure. And I follow what sounds to me like common sense. Unfortunately, common sense is not common in academia.
Yeah. It's not that we don't know, it's that we know too much.
Well,
which is the problem, the ego problem.
Yeah, I should say, here, I would refer to what Donald Rumsfeld was saying in the context of the military, where he said that there are the knowns unknowns, things that we know that we don't know, but most importantly, there are the unknown unknowns. And in science, we know that we don't understand what was there before the Big Bang. We know that we don't understand what's in the center of a black hole. We don't understand what most of the matter, 85% of the matter in the universe is. It's called dark matter. What is causing the accelerated expansion of the universe? It's called dark energy. These are the known
Known
unknowns.
unknowns.
But I
We
wonder
don't know what we don't know.
yeah, what are the unknown unknowns? There must be a lot of things that we don't even realize that we don't know. And the only
Yeah,
way for us to figure them out is to explore the universe without having a
yeah.
prejudice. It's very easy to remain ignorant. The best way to remain ignorant is to believe that you're an expert, that you know already everything that can be known about the subject that you're studying.
Mm.
And that's what happens to people as they age, because they connect their ego, their prestige, the honors and awards that they receive to what they said in the past. And they will not let new knowledge come in, because it will take away their stature.
Yeah,
And
a
so
lot
that's what you
stored in the
find.
hippocampus, huh? A lot of past experiences stored in the hippocampus. That's also one
Yeah,
area I've been
but I
working
think
on.
being having a beginner's mind always, it keeps me young to
Yeah,
always ask
yeah.
questions, to always wonder, and a lot of my colleagues that are biologically younger than me, they behave as the adults in the room, and I find that really unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So, what are the most exciting developments or discoveries now in astrophysics you foresee in the
Oh,
coming
okay.
decade?
Well, as of the last decade, we have a new way of looking at the universe. In the past, we were just using light. So telescopes were collecting light from stars far away, galaxies, and so forth. And this is still being used, but in 2015, a new way to study the universe was used, and that is gravitational waves, which are basically ripples in space and time. So
Mhm.
just think that in Einstein's theory of gravity, there is no force associated with gravity. It's actually the curvature of space and time that is uh, generated by masses. And so if you want to understand how the sun keeps the earth in a circular orbit around it, just think about a bowling ball that you put on a trampoline, and it curves the surface of the trampoline. So if you put a marble at the right speed, it will go in a circle around the bowling ball in this curved surface. And if you remove the bowling ball from the center of the trampoline, the rubber of the trampoline, the surface will be flat, and then the marble will move in a straight line. And so that's what will happen to Earth if you remove the sun. So
Yeah.
it's not really a force that is acting between the sun and the Earth. It's just that the sun curves space-time so that the Earth is trying to follow a straight line, but because of the curvature, it moves in a circle. And that was the insight that Einstein had. But now imagine two suns or two objects, very massive objects like the sun, in an orbit around each other. Because they're moving, they create ripples. Just like if you move two sticks on the surface of a pond, you will get ripples from that. And so these are the ripples of space-time that are called gravitational waves. And those gravitational waves were detected for the first time in 2015. By the way, Einstein, in the late 1930s, argued that maybe gravitational waves do not exist. And he was wrong. They do exist. And they were discovered in 2015 by the LIGO experiment, and the Nobel Prize was awarded for that. And now we can see those sources of black holes orbiting each other all the way to the edge of the universe. And we can, first of all, confirm Einstein's theory of gravity, but also learn about black holes at great distances without seeing them. They're
Yeah.
completely dark.
May I call this the flower of life as well? Are we starting to see the flower of life with
No, so life, you see,
it's
life
like
is
the
another Life is more for the future. So, I think that the biggest, let's put it this way, the most romantic question that you have in science right now is, do we have a partner in our cosmic neighborhood? Is there another form of life? And obviously, we know that it will change the meaning of our existence, because when we find a partner in our real life, we get a new meaning to our life. And the famous physicist, Nobel laureate Steven Weinberg, argued at the end of his book, The First 3 Minutes, that the more the universe appears comprehensible, the more pointless it seems. And that is the view. If you ask my colleagues, most of them would tell you there is no point to the universe. You just have a sequence of events. But I think they're misguided because they focus on elementary particles, stars, objects. Whereas if we find a partner in our cosmic neighborhood, it will give a new meaning to our life. We will suddenly not feel lonely. And so I think the next biggest frontier is actually finding evidence for an intelligent civilization, a partner out there that we can learn from, that will change our priorities and make us behave in a better way, do better. And that is my
it's
hope
kind of
that,
like connecting with a higher self.
exactly, it's a
Maybe,
superhuman intelligence. And
mm,
that we might develop such an intelligence also by developing AI systems that exceed our capabilities. And they will always be alien to us because they are made of silicon, we are made of flesh and blood. But actually meeting a neighbor would be far more enriching, as far as I can tell, because those neighbors may have had, millions or billions of years advantage relative to us. We just had 1 century of science and technology.
That would be actually awesome. So my last question would be, what parallels do you see between the quest of understanding outer space and our quest of inner fulfillment and our quest for meaning?
Oh,
As
I think
Aristotle says, a man is in the search of meaning.
we will face the same revelation and self improvement that results from going to your mailbox or going back to your backyard and finding a package. And the package includes a recipe for doing better from another neighbor who happened to live much longer and be much wiser than we are. And this, I think, is my hope of fulfilling the words of John Lennon, making it a reality such that eventually, our future will not be the same as our past.
Yeah. Wise words. Thank you. It has been great. Thank you very much. I enjoyed every minute of our conversation and I learned a lot. So thank you very much. I'm sure all of our listeners and people who will watch us from YouTube have also learned a lot. So my last quest will be, how can people, if they wanted to reach to you, how can they reach you? And maybe name some of your books so that if they're interested in the topics you're speaking, they can at least buy one of your books and start, diving deep and start thinking and maybe expand their consciousness about what's out there.
Right. So you can find essays that I write almost every day or 2 days on medium.com. You can just search for Avi Loeb at medium.com and it comes with free subscription. I don't charge anything, and you can find a lot of essays on the various things we discussed. But in addition, I published 2 popular level books recently. One is Extraterrestrial that you mentioned from 2021, and the second is Interstellar from 2023. And now I'm actually writing a new book that should come out hopefully in a couple of years or so about the expedition. There will also be a Netflix documentary about my work that should come out towards the end of 2025. There is a TED Talk that I gave a couple of months ago that should be released on July 15th, 2024. And there are lots of artists that were inspired by my work. So There is a poet that wrote poems based on that. There is actually a musician that wrote a piece that was played by the Virginia Symphony Orchestra. There is about
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I have been listening to it over and over again. It's so
Thank you.
beautiful.
And there is a painter that is that made a beautiful painting inspired by my work. There is a sculptor that is now making a big sculpture, and there was a playwright that wrote a play that we hope will be presented in a theater. And so altogether, you know, I'm really grateful that I managed to use science to inspire arts, because there is something in common, which is that both of us, all of us, are exploring the unknown.
Yes. Yeah, this has been very inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
And
having me.
I can't wait for the Netflix documentary and to also finish reading your books and your upcoming book. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you all for listening to us, and I'll see you in the next episode. Have a great day.